Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sacred Odyssey Videocast. Here we try our best to take an intellectual, and spiritual quest. Did I get that out right, Terry? Did I get that right?
You're asking the wrong one on pronunciations of words. I'm just a Southern boy from Tennessee.
Yeah, if they live in Townsend or Tennessee, y'all know exactly what we're talking about. But we started a new little series. We've got the other series going as well, but we started a series on Unpacking Genesis, and we kind of did an introduction to the introduction last week. And Terry, do what you were doing just before. What we're going to be examining here. What is our quest? What is our spiritual quest we're trying to do?
Well, if you watched our last video, if you hadn't, please go back and watch it, because it's more. We don't talk a lot about Genesis, but more preparing yourself for. Today, we're going to actually get into a little more introduction to it directly. Last week's was more of an introduction of the subject. Today, we're going to be getting into the introduction and the beginning of looking into Genesis. And like we brought out last week, that there are multiple levels of understanding. And I explained it like this. When you read the text in the black and white that's on the page, it's like looking at that leaf. See that leaf with all the veins and all that? It's pretty cool. But if you want to know a little bit more about that leaf, you'll pick up a magnifying glass and you'll begin to examine that leaf a little closer. Then you can, if you want to even take even a deeper look, maybe you have some interest in natural science, and you'll put it under a microscope and you'll get a little bit deeper. Then you really want to get into the cells, inside the cells, inside what you cannot see even with a microscope. You'll go to an electron microscope if you have the money and the funds and the way to do it. It would be pretty cool. I think it would, from somebody in my mindset. I'm a Trekkie. I think it'd be cool to look in something through an electron microscope. But the thing is, whether you look at it with your eyes, with a magnifying glass, with the microscope, or with an electron microscope, it doesn't change the shape of the leaf.
Right.
It doesn't change. When we are fixing to do that with the Torah, with Genesis, we're going to unpack Genesis, just like using the different levels of looking at this leaf, is unpacking the elements of this that makes up that leaf, but it never changes its shape. It doesn't change its nature, what it is, what it was created for. The way you look at it doesn't change this. It changes your perception of what's there.
Yes. Can I throw something in about the leaf, Terry? My mind went back to when I was in school, and I'd be the first to tell you I didn't do a whole lot of well, I don't want to tell you how bad boy I was in school, but I did. There was a couple of things that came up that really sparked my interest. And I remember when my first class in science that they brought out this big microscope, but I hadn't paid a lot of attention in the previous classes. So when I looked through the microscope and I saw these little things that connected, these things that were working inside of it, I didn't know what it was, because I had failed to start from the beginning. I failed to start from first looking at the leaf, understanding this is what this is. Now we're going to go in. It never sparked my deepest interest until I went back to the beginning and started up. And then suddenly out of the blue, I got an understanding of what I saw in the microscope. Now, you can't start at the microscope level first. You've got to first examine the leaf, and then you got to go through steps. So I really like the way you presented that, Terry. I really like. Now, if I can go ahead and ask this, I know, Terry, you've got some things you want to present to us, but if I can ask you this, why are we planning, if I'm trying to bring this out correctly, why are we planning to examine Bereshit, Genesis, in the Hebrew, if I can, or the Jewish position? Why are we planning on doing that? Did I ask that correctly? I know I told you I was going to throw these on you. Why are we trying to examine that one? Why can't we do it the way the Western world does it? You know,
pick up the book and Webster's dictionary and thesaurus and a concordance, and I know it all because I believe, and I've got all the tools right here.
Yeah.
No. I don't want to upset. Nope. No, I'm going to leave that.
And we're here to bring out first the structure. Why are we studying the way we're studying?
What we need to understand is when we pick up a Bible and we read in the beginning, what you just read was not written down in textual format for some 2,000 plus years.
Wait a minute now. I got to ask you. Okay, so who wrote it, first of all? Let me ask you that first. 2,000 years. It took 2,000. You mean
the text that we read, that we are reading from the Torah itself, that is been passed down through the Jewish people for 3,400 plus, somewhere around 3,400 years, was not written down. The information we have in the book of Genesis was never written down until the time of Moses, until after he was 80, maybe 80 plus years old, when he went to the bush and he met God, and God sent him out on a mission. It was during that mission and during the time he was at Mount Sinai and the 40 years in the wilderness that we get the text, what we call the Torah.
But now that didn't mean that the Torah, the position, it existed before that, though, correct?
Yes. Torah means instruction.
Yes.
It just means instruction. It's God's instruction to mankind. And as I said in the last video, the Torah is the mind of the Creator himself. It did not exist in written format, and what we're fixing to get. Understand, when we open up the Bible and read Bereshit bara, the first words of the Bible did not exist in written form until the time of Moses. Understand that when Moses wrote those words down, it tells us that Moses wrote all the words that God spoke to him down. This is when it appeared. So when we read the Genesis, what we're reading about Abraham and reading about, God told Moses.
Was there?
And then they had it. They had it. He wrote it down, and then God also spoke to them orally.
So there was
about things.
So there was an oral transmission down.
There's always an oral transmission. Every society has oral transmission. Every society has it in history. I didn't learn how to tie my shoes by reading a book.
Okay. I know this.
You know what? My daddy taught me how to tie my shoes. And guess whose daddy taught, Isaac? Who was the daddy of Isaac? Okay. Who taught Abraham? Let me ask you that. Who taught Abraham?
Good question.
Noah and Shem.
Well, now
there was actually a school. Matter of fact, there's a cave in Safat, Israel called the Cave of Shem and Ever. There was a school in which Noah and Shem and them taught Abraham and his children the things that came down from Adam. It was passed down.
Yes. I think a lot of people's assumptions are, as they read about different people, and I know we're going to start in Bereshit, but we need to cover these things as we go.
This is my introduction.
Yeah, yeah. I think people think, now this is the concept, and I've had this conversation with people before in the past, and their concept is, out of the blue, Abraham got this concept of the creator, and he started the Jewish race. Is that true or false?
In essence, that is true.
And then
Abraham.
Now let's
okay. I'm jumping ahead of this. Since you brought this up.
I'm sorry.
Since you brought this up, Scotty, listen, I'm just going to bring this up. This is a little further in Genesis. We're going to get to it. We're going to start with the first, but since Scotty brought this up, I need to bring it up. In Genesis chapter 6, it says that Noah found favor in the eyes of God. Do you know what that favor was? It has several levels, but do you want to know what one of the levels of the favor that was in God's eye that Noah carried?
Let's hear it.
It wasn't just his obedience. His obedience was there. It goes on to even talk about that. But within his loins, he carried the seed of Abraham.
Oh, well. Oh, now wait just a minute.
That's what God.
I'm just talking to myself now, Terry. You go ahead and keep talking. I'm just absorbing.
When God looked into Noah, he saw Abraham. And when he saw Abraham, he saw Israel.
So what you just did, we first had the leaf in our hand, and you just took a magnifying glass and stuck it on it.
Yeah.
And great. That was great. I didn't mean to throw you over there.
Because you see, you have Noah, his son Shem. Well, Noah is Abraham is a descendant of Shem. That's what the Semite is, the Shemites. He's a descendant of Shem. And so he learned in Abraham, to all of us, Abraham's our grandfather, because all human beings today, that's why why humanity is called the B'nai Noach. We are the children of Noah. Humanity is the children of Noah. All human beings today are the children of Noah. We came from one of his three sons. And Abraham and the Jewish people comes from the son of Shem. And Shem was a teacher of what God gave Adam, and Adam passed it down on how to live. And he set up a school in what would become the land that God would give give Abraham. Shem and Ever set up a school right there in the land in which Abraham was a sojourner.
This is awesome. I'm going to try to pull us back over here in a minute, because I struck you.
Wheel us in, Scotty. Wheel us back.
I struck you.
I'm like a fly fisherman. I'm sitting here and I'm pulling that string out and I'm
the one that started you on that journey, and we
sorry about
cover that. When we get to that point, I want to challenge the people to stay with us all the way through this, because this is why we are calling it Unpacking Genesis. The things you are going to hear on these teachings, I'm not saying we are these great scholars, but I will say that for years, sometimes we are, whether through assumption or things, we just graze over it and we see the leaf. But we want to examine what that leaf is made of. How did we get here? What holds this leaf together? What are all the principles? So what we're going to look at is things that you're not going to hear in a regular Sunday school class. We're going to take our time. We're going to break down the words. And now, Terry, you've got something you want to present to us before we go any farther. Did I bring it up to that point, or?
Yeah, we can. This
okay.
This is going to be I think a good place for this.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to bring it. Well,
just take your time with it.
I'm just going to flow with it. Okay.
Yeah.
what we're bringing to you, why you've not heard a lot of this, is because we're bringing this to you. This is information that is packed in 3,400 years of Jewish tradition. Some are sitting there, why are we learning from the Jews? And I hope we don't lose. I hope I haven't lost our audience. I don't. There's a reason why. There's multiple reasons why we learn from the Jews. Again, 3,400 years. There's no one else on the planet that has that. There's no other nation on the planet that can boast that their forefathers was eyewitnesses by the millions when the Creator spoke. And when we get to it, in the Torah tells us that they saw the words of God. They actually saw them. It's what it's in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, when you read it, they saw the words of God. So we learn from the only nation in the millions who was there that day. And their children is teaching us what their forefathers taught them. King David even said it this way. And I know it's been read.
That's what I was going to
sought in. King David says in Psalms 147, verses 19 and 20. It's a little hard thing for those of us in the nations. But somebody's got to be the teacher and somebody's got to be the students. And we're the students, which I'm happy with being the student. In Psalms 147, verse 19, it says, He, it's the Creator, relates. That's interesting. That didn't say related, it says relates. That's a continuation. His word to Jacob, his statutes and his judgments to Israel. He did not do so for any other nation, he did not do so for any other nation, such judgments. They know them not. I'm going to read that again. He relates his word to Jacob, his statutes and his judgments to Israel. He did not do so for any other nation, such judgments. They know them not. In the Hebrew, when this is studied out, when it says here in 19, he relates his word to Jacob. That's his mouth, his oral speakings. His statutes and his judgments to Israel is his written text. He is telling us in this passage, King David's telling us that Israel received the oral and the written message from God. As a matter of fact, it says he relates. There's a continuation there in that word.
So, Terry, I need to ask you something here. Now, what if I just see what you just are reading? The written Torah was presented to Israel.
The written and the oral. There's examples of the oral within the written.
Okay.
They're like when the Creator told Israel that you shall slaughter the animals as you've been shown. There's not one written text.
Correct. Right.
On the instructions of slaughter. It was orally taught from father to son. There's also there's other passages like that. It's the same thing. Some of them have been those in the nations who's been able to, it's been translated in their language, have read it and thought they understood what it was, and they've gone with it, and they misuse the text all the time, even quotes it in movies and totally destroys it because they don't have the oral teaching behind it.
Right.
When we get to the text, it's like reading the headlines of the newspaper. You know what I'm saying? You don't get all the information. And so there is an oral teaching behind all of the written. You have to. But like I said, people who are against oral tradition, it's craziness, because every culture, every nation on the planet has had an oral tradition of some sort.
So the commandments, sometimes I don't like to call them commandments, responsibilities, are the things that are presented in the written Torah, mostly in the book of Exodus, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't anything prior to that as far as what we call laws or commandments.
No, there were laws. There's laws and commandments, which they're called mitzvot in Hebrew, but it's in the word mitzvah is used quite often in Hebrew all the way in Genesis, and it really means a deed, which can be a law or a commandment. Those are words that Americans really have a hard time with.
Yeah. So what happened on Mount Sinai was not a new concept. Basically, I mean,
The writing it down,
but some of the principles was already in place from the beginning of time.
Everything that happened on Mount Sinai, that God told Israel on Mount Sinai, falls on the basis of what was spoken to Adam and Noah.
Okay.
It's actually the written wasn't given and was given after the oral.
I know
it was expounded.
Right.
Because with Israel, there's a lot more given there than he's given the nations, because they have a lot more to do. They're the priestly nation. They're the managers, or however you want to put it. Therefore, their requirement is a lot higher. They have more duties to do than we do. And so therefore, a lot of your Torah goes to them, not us. You can't just pick up the Bible and read it and say, that's speaking to me. No, right. That's a big mistake.
I've also heard the concept that there were no laws or instructions. Can I use the word instructions for a minute? There were no instructions in place until Mount Sinai. Is that true or false?
False.
So are we going to begin, as we begin unpacking the book of Genesis, Bereshit, are these going to be revealed to us as we go?
Yeah. I'm just going to bring this is kind of jumping ahead, but fits in. God did not destroy all of humanity except for one family just because he didn't like them. Okay, what did it say? Why did it say that God brought the flood?
I can reveal that, but since you're on it, you reveal it.
Well, no, Scotty, I mean, I'll ask you the question. Okay. Why did God bring the flood? What is it written in the text?
I believe there was a place that said that the end of, if I'm quoting it correctly.
What was the earth full of?
Robbery, murder,
violence.
Violence.
Now, why would God say the earth was full of robbery if there was no laws against theft?
Oh, well, you got me there, Terry.
That's why would God say the earth was full of violence if there was no laws against murder and personal injury?
Right. Why? How can you judge
what labels violence and what labels robbery? What labels violence?
Right.
What labels it?
The act, the deed. If I'm trying to go in your directive.
If you were told not to steal, if you were never told that, then theft doesn't exist.
Correct.
Does theft exist within the animal kingdom? No, because they were not told not to steal.
Right.
Does it exist within humanity, who is created in the image of God? Yes, because we were told not to steal.
So the way we're different than animals, okay, if a lion makes a kill and the hyenas come in and get it, or the hyenas make a kill and the lion comes and gets it,
it's not theft.
It's not theft because they weren't told don't steal.
Right. They're actually doing what God created them to do, their instinct. But see, we are given free choice. We were given free will. But God could not destroy the earth because of robbery if he did not give a law somewhere not to steal. God is a just God. And if he destroyed the earth because of robbery, but yet he did not give a commandment, then he's not just.
Correct.
He's just acting out of a whim.
And we're going to be unpacking what we're just saying. To some, I know this is the first time you've heard this. Please, I'm going to say again, don't turn us off. Hold that dial. Don't move that dial. Just hold on, and we're going to get to there. So, all right, Terry, you got something you want to read?
All right, let's get into this. Well, we already have. We're about neck deep, I guess. All right. You know what? Scotty and I love studying, and we love sharing. We're just messengers. Okay, we're just messengers, and we enjoy being the ones that are, carrying the message. It's just part of who we are and how the Creator created us. I'm going to read you a story. Probably should have read this first. Let me get a drink to wet my whistle. Here's some good old Dr. Pepper. Let's see here. In my Tennessee cup. There we go. In my Tennessee cup. Although their football team stinks right now. I will admit that. Okay. This tale is called The Treasure. The Treasure, like a treasure chest. It's an ancient story. I say ancient because way before I was alive. Anything before 1960 is ancient to me.
Yeah.
Oh, anyhow, this is a tale of a Jewish person that lived in Krakow. I think it's in Russia, somewhere like that. Back a long time ago, I'm going to say probably 1800s. So there was a poor man named Reb Isaac of Krakow who lived in dire poverty for many years, barely eking out a meager living. One night he dreamed of a beautiful bridge in Prague, a city he had certainly never visited in his lifetime. In his dream, he saw that there was a treasure that was buried under a bridge. At first, he ignored the dream. Wouldn't anyone in his sorry situation dream of a buried treasure? But when the dream returned night after night, he started having second thoughts. Perhaps his vision held some merit, some truth to it. So Reb Isaac sold, borrowed, and begged whatever he could until he had enough money to travel to Prague, and he set off on a long, exhausting quest. And when he finally had reached the beautiful city, he was thrilled to find that it looked just as it was in his dream. But although the bridge was exactly as it appeared to him night after night, in the light of day, soldiers walked up and down its length, guarding it. Reb Isaac settled down and to wait for the soldiers to go off duty so that he could explore beneath the bridge. And to his dismay, however, he discovered that it was watched around the clock. Had God brought him so far just to deny him a chance to dig for the riches of his dream that had promised? But Reb Isaac would not easily be deterred. He returned to his post near the bridge day after day until the guards became used to his presence. Eventually, one of them became curious and summoned him. "Why do you come to this bridge every day?" the soldier asked. "Are you waiting for someone?" Rabbi Isaac decided to speak truthfully, hoping that the soldier would allow him to search the area in exchange for a share of the treasure. He revealed his dream to him, but after hearing it, the soldier threw back his head and exploded in laughter. "You came all this way because you had some foolish dream. What a dreamer you Jews are. I also had a dream that a certain Jew named Reb Isaac, who lives in the outskirts of Krakow, has a treasure buried beneath the stove of his house. But do you see me going all the way there to check it out? Of course not." And he walked away, laughing at the old man. Upon hearing those words, Reb Isaac ran to catch the first wagon back to Krakow, straight to his home. When he arrived, he immediately shoved the heavy iron stove out of the way. He began to dig the hard dirt floor, and soon enough his spade hit something, a chest full of gold. In his joy, he cried, "Now that I have the treasure, now I know that the treasure was here all along, but I had to go all the way to Prague to discover that it was with me the entire time." The treasure, that's the story. The treasure is within every single one of us, but we might need to travel far and wide through teachers and books and experiences until we discover it. Ultimately, all the teachings turns us back home to the wealth of godliness that lies within each one of us.
That is not only awesome, that's beautiful. A great concept, a great revealing.
It's interesting. As I was reading this, I've read this many times. I've heard it quite a few times over the years. But as I sat here reading this time, I saw us. I saw many of us. I saw me. I saw myself. So there was a poor man who lived in dire poverty, barely eking out a meager living. And one night he had a dream about a bridge in Prague. I see myself spiritually.
Yeah.
A poor person who's been eking out, scratching where I can find to live spiritually before God. And then something happened in my life, like this dream. You know what? I went for 7 years, almost 7 years, studying in an area where I thought the treasure was at. Until April of 2016, I learned that the treasure was already in my house. I didn't need to go there.
Mm.
And you too. Maybe you've been, you what little bit of morsels you've got, you think you've already received everything you're supposed to have. But there's a treasure that lies inside of you that the Creator gave you.
It's part of the Creator.
Yeah, it's the Creator. Yeah, that's the spark. What the Hebrews say is a spark.
Yeah,
every human being carries the spark of the divine. The spark of the divine is already in you. You don't have to go looking for it. You just got to discover what's in that treasure chest that's already there at home. Awesome. And really, that's what we're going to be doing. When we unpack Genesis, we're going to unpack our treasure chest and find out what God has already given us.
Yeah, that.
Can I get a hallelujah? No,
hallelujah.
I had to do it. Awesome. I just had to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
is that okay, Scotty?
That's great. That's great. Listen, we've been going for about 40 minutes now. Do you want to keep going?
Really?
Yeah. Do you want to? I think so. I didn't time this so far, but I just looked at when I sent you the message to start. What's your clock say?
I haven't even looked at the clock. It says about 10 till 3 Eastern time, East Tennessee time.
I want to ask if it's okay if we do this. You presented something in the front of your Tanakh. I want to ask if it's okay if you read that, and then we'll come to a close. And when we come for the next episode, we can start off with you reading that again.
You know what? That's a great idea. Let's close with this and begin with it. And that way we're not putting too much into one video for our listeners. Right. I agree with that. Because again, we've gave a chunk here for some to really go back and listen to a few times.
I can't wait till we get to in the beginning. And so,
we are there. We are there. Don't think we're dragging this on.
Yeah.
But we're having to give, because most people don't know the 2,000 plus years of human existence went on before the writing of the text, that there was an oral transmission. We've had to set this up because this is information that most people don't know. They haven't learned. They're not taught these things. And so, yeah, that's a big chunk for some. So I'll end right here, and we'll come back. Understand we are really at Genesis, because the first word of the text is Bereshit, in the beginning. And that's what we've been doing in this video, is in the beginning. In the beginning, awesome. There was an oral message. In the beginning, there's a treasure at your home. Is in everything that we've done in this episode has been in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
And so in my Tanakh, which we discussed, I think, in the last video, that this is the Hebrew scriptures, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. What is called the Hebrew scriptures. In this particular, this is the Art Scroll Stone Edition, which means it's the Art Scroll English translation. It's a translation, not a version. It's a translation.
Now, since you brought this up, let me just clarify something here. Terry, it's not a translation of a translation or a revision or a revisation, it didn't go down through several hands. This was translated, first of all, by who?
Jewish people.
The Jewish people
speak English.
From what?
From Hebrew.
From Hebrew.
Well, let me put this: Hebrew and Aramaic.
Hebrew and Aramaic. Correct. Thank you, Terry.
Because in some places you'll read Hebrew and automatically it goes in Aramaic, and you can't tell it by just looking at you have to know it by the vowel points, because the Aramaic has got the same exact letters, just the vowels are pronounced. Quick right. Example.
Right.
The Hebrew word bless, Baruch, is Aramaic Barik.
Okay.
Example. That's just real quick. All right.
But before you read that, so what we are going to be studying when we come back is it's not
the Hebrew and the English, together.
Right. But it didn't come from a language, and then finally we've got
it comes from the Jewish tradition, 3,400 years of studying the Jewish tradition.
Okay.
And we're going to be learning from how they explain it to us in the English language, Hebrew to English, from those who speak and live Hebrew.
Now, in our last video, we kindly covered part of this. So I'm going to ask everybody, I want you to read that, but when we come to a close, we'll do all of our plugs and our announcements and all those
things.
things.
Somebody just unplugged the clocks, because this is, I thought we'd only been going about 5 minutes.
We've actually, and now according to my time, I didn't start the timer, but I think we've been going for a little over 40, but I think it's probably a good place to stop right here and start again.
Yeah, because we're wanting to get these down to around 30 to 40 minutes or so. Yeah. So they're easier, time consuming not time consuming, but easier on time to listen to.
Yeah.
And everything. So, and when we get into the study of Genesis itself, we may have multiple videos on one word, one sentence, because there's too much there. There's volumes. Yeah. But anyhow, in my Tanakh, they're the what's called the overview section. It's talking about what the book is and stuff. And this is I love the way it's written. It says Tanakh, the textbook of the soul. I've always loved that.
Yeah.
In this overview, it says something really interesting that I want to bring out. We're going to bring this out as a close to what we've been saying here the last few minutes. It says, let me see here. The Torah is meant to shape people as well as deeds. Shape people and what they do. Because it's only human beings who are God's standard bearers, and those personal example and whose personal example can inspire others to serve him. Just like we said, animals aren't given the prohibition of theft. They don't serve God the same way we serve God. So therefore, he gives us the prohibition and expects us not only to read it, but to do it and to teach father to son, daughter, and others to do the same thing, because through human beings, we are the only ones that is God's standard bearers. It's so important is this concept that Genesis devotes much space to conduct. God wants us to learn not merely from written text. The most eloquent texts are the ones of flesh and blood.
So, Terry, can I just, so it's not my religious affiliation, but it's my actions and my deeds that present the Creator.
The Torah is written for people and deeds, what they do, what the people do.
That's great.
Not to start a religion, but to help us in our day-to-day walk with Him and with man in what we do.
That's awesome, Terry. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's bring this one to a close, and then we're gonna kindly pick up where we left off the next time. And Terry, you got any final words to say before we come to a close?
No, because I'll go preaching again.
Okay. Listen, everybody, as Terry said earlier in this video, please hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell and do all notifications. So when we upload a video on either one of the playlists, you will be notified, and we appreciate you commenting, and we'll view those comments and kind of, if you got any questions, put the questions in the comments, and we'll do our best to kindly cover those in future videos. And Terry, did I cover everything?
Also share it. If you find our videos, the information, something that you enjoy, and you know someone who may enjoy the same thing, share it with them.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Terry. Okay, everybody, until the next videocast of Sacred Odyssey Videocast.
He is sacred and I'm the Odyssey.
Yeah. It depends on who you ask, Terry. So we so much appreciate you, and we will see you next time right here on Sacred Odyssey Videocast.
Bye-bye.
See you later.